Hi there, my name is Will and I'm going to be walking you through how to use revisions inside of Kestra. Revisions are super useful for being able to manage the history of your workflow, especially useful if you end up introducing a breaking change and need to roll back to a previous version quickly. I'm going to walk you through how to get the most out of this in Kestra. Jumping inside of Kestra, I have an example flow here that has had many different revisions. Now a revision is saved every time you press save, so anytime I change anything, whether that's I want to quickly rename something, or in this case, I could add a new input. Now that I've added my new input, if I go to revisions, I can see that this revision was successfully added and it wasn't there previously. If I go back to editor, maybe I want to call this my input 1, or actually I could give it a default value. So let me give it a default value of hello. And now if I go to revisions, we'll see that I did in fact change it, and I can actually go back and see the revision before where I had actually updated it to have the 1 on the end, and I can see that here. And I can go back another revision and see that I didn't even have it all together. So lots of control that you get there to be able to get the full revision. Now, let me go back to this example where I had it just say my input. I can actually then click restore. So now we're going to go back to that revision, and if I go back to editor, we'll see that my default value has gone. So that puts me in a really nice position where I don't have to therefore repeat myself loads, or have to copy and paste things manually. It just makes it a little bit easier. I can also see the full revision, so if I want to be able to see the full flow without having to see it side by side, I can do that. I can also go line by line. So if you'd rather see the changes line by line next to each other. So here, if I go back a couple of revisions to 10, we can see the two different lines there changing next to each other. So useful that you've got the option to do both, depending on whatever your preference is. Revision can come in handy as well after you've executed your code. Let me execute this and we'll see what happens. So once we've executed that, we can see that the convert took 55 seconds. And in some scenarios, it could take a long time if you're working with a much bigger data set. Now, when it tries to convert this CSV file into a Parquet file, what happens is it fails. And we can see that it fails due to an illegal character or an incorrect format. So what we need to do now is update that format, but I don't really want to have to run that 55-second convert task again. So if we now jump into the editor and update this date time format, which was causing the problem, if I go back to that failed execution, I can actually use replay to only replay the task that failed and continue from there, and select a revision that has updated code. So while revisions might be useful just for the development phase, it can also be useful for executions as well. So here, when I press a replay for the whole flow, I can actually select my new revision, but I want to specifically do that for the task run. So if I go back to that logs or the Gantt chart, and here I can see the error message, I can actually click on replay here, and then I can select our new revision. So here, or I can press the replay using latest revision. So when I do that, it will then just resume from where it left off without having to do all of the earlier tasks. So really helpful, and it's sort of a hidden secret about revisions is it's not just for being able to roll back major things. It can also be helpful in the moment when you're trying to deal with an execution as well. And as we can see here, this was actually successful, and it only took 13 seconds to turn it into a Parquet file without actually having to rerun everything else. So just another example of where if I go back to editing the flow, I can easily see the revision being updated and be able to use that in the execution. Hopefully you found that useful and you're going to start managing the history of your workflows in Kestra. We'll have a separate guide on how to manage it with Git or another version control software as well, if you want to have that flexibility. Leave a comment in the description below how you're going to use revisions, and remember to join our Slack community where you can chat with us there.